Today we are going to solve questions on ratio and proportion. Express 20 centimeters and 15 meters as a ratio. Let's look at this. How can we write this as ratio? 20 centimeters and 15 meters. Now let's bear in mind that when you are expressing two quantities which have different units, you need to change one unit to the other. Meaning, you have to make sure they all have the same unit before you can express them as ratio. Now, let's look at the unit differences we have on the board. With these three unit differences we have here, you'll be able to find the rest of the differences among these three units we have on the board. 1 kilometer would give us 1 million millimeters. 1 kilometer would also give us 100,000 centimeters. And 1 kilometer will also give us 1,000 meters. Sometimes we find it difficult to remember the unit differences because of examination pressure. Today, I am going to give you a simple technique that will help you to be able to determine the unit differences at any point, at any time, under any pressure. Now let's look at how we can determine the unit differences. 1 kilometer will give us 1 million millimeters. So we are going to look at the difference between millimeters and meters to find the difference between these two units, which is meter and millimeters. What we need to do is to cancel the difference of zeros. Now we can see that we have 1,000 meters having 3 zeros, 1 million millimeters having 6 zeros. So we are going to cancel out the zeros. This 0 will cancel one of the zeros here. This 0 as well will also cancel one of the zeros here. Then the last 0 here will also take another 0. Now we can see that we have 1 meter equal to 1,000 millimeters. So this is the unit difference between meters and millimeters. Each 1 meter gives us 1,000 millimeters. Now let's also look at the difference between millimeters and centimeters. We have 100,000 centimeters equal to 1 million millimeters. Let's find the zero differences. This 0 will cancel this 0. Another 0 will cancel another 0. Take away another 0 again. Another 0 again. Then the last 0 will also cancel this. So the remaining here is 1. The remaining here is 1 and 0, which is 10. This means that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. Let's now look at the difference between centimeters and meters. We have 1,000 meters equal to 100,000 centimeters. To find the difference, we need to cancel out the zeros. Here, 1 0 will take away 1, another 0 will take away another, then the last 0 will also take away this 0. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So this means that every 1 meter will give us 100 centimeters. These two quantities, which is 20 and 15, have different units. But before we can compare or write them as ratio, we need to change one of the units here to the other. So we are going to change our meters to centimeters. Now, from the beginning of this video, we have learned a special technique that would help us to be able to know the unit differences between centimeters and meters. Now, 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. And now we have 15 meters. So if we have 15 meters, then what are we going to get? If 1 meter is giving us 100 centimeters, and now we have 15 meters, what do we get then? We don't know. So let's change this, our question mark, to any variable, y. So y will multiply 1, and 15 will also multiply 100. We call this cross multiplication. Y will multiply 1 and 15 will multiply 100. So y times 1 will give us y, then 15 times 100, 15 times 100. So y is equal to 15 times 100 is going to give us 1,500. So this means that 15 meters will give us 1,500 centimeters. So in place of 15, you write 1,500 centimeters. What can we see here? The same units. So now that they have the same units, now that these two quantities have the same unit, we can express them as a ratio. Now, 20 centimeters is to 1,500 centimeters. Our 15 meters here is giving us 1,500 centimeters. Since we have the same units, centimeters and centimeters, we can now write them as ratio. But what we have, or what we need to know about this, is that you cannot write ratio with the unit. So this unit here, let's see how, or let's see the reason why writing ratio do not involve units, because a ratio can be written as fraction, and since you can write this 20 centimeters is to 1,500 as 20 centimeters over 1,500 centimeters, this centimeters will go away. So this is the reason why we do not have units in writing ratio. Any ratio you write, do not add unit to it. When you add unit to it, whatever you have done is wrong. So we don't express ratio together with the units, but rather we get rid of the unit and only write the numbers or the quantities. Now this 0, we take away the 0. Then we have 2 over 150. Now 2 here can divide itself and can also divide 150. 2 divide itself 1. Now 2 will go into 100 50 times, and it will go into 50 25. So that means 2 will go into 150 75 times. This is in the form of fraction, but we are supposed to write it as a ratio. So the answer here will be 1 is to 75. Now let's look at how we were able to get the answer. So from this point, we are looking at what the question asks us to do. The question asks us to express 20 centimeters and 15 meters as a ratio. Then, knowing that we cannot express this as a ratio since they don't have the same unit, we needed to change one of the units to the other. So that is why we change meters here to centimeters. So our first step, or anytime you are given any question in a way of expressing two different quantities with two different units, as a ratio, your first step is to convert one of the units to the other so that they will all have the same unit. So when you look at what you have done here, this, from the beginning of the video, I explained how to get the difference or the differences in the unit. So you can check again from the beginning of the video. Now when we got this, knowing that 1 meter is giving us 100 centimeters, and now we have 15 meters. So now what will 15 meters give us in centimeters? So that is why we put question mark here. Then we said let's represent this place with a variable, which is y. So here y will multiply 1 and 15 will multiply 100, giving us 1500. So this simply means if 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters, then 15 meters will give us 1500 centimeters. So 15 meters will give us 1500 centimeters. Then second step, our second step is to write the two quantities with the same units as a ratio. Knowing that writing ratios, we do not involve the unit, that is why I intentionally wrote this as a fraction to show how, or to show the reason why we do not have units in expressing numbers or quantities as ratios. So we have 20 centimeters is 2500 centimeters. 20 centimeters divided by 1500 centimeters. The centimeters will take centimeters away. Then 20 will go into itself 1 and also go into 1575 times. So when you get this answer, please do, when you write it like 1/75, this one is called fraction. This one is not a ratio. So when you write this 1/75, you'll be marked wrong because it's not a ratio, it is rather a fraction. Now let's bear in mind that when you get here, you need to simplify. When you simplify, or when you are simplifying, you can write it as a fraction, which is 20 centimeters over 1500 centimeters. Here the centimeters will cancel out the centimeters. 20 will go into itself 1, 20 will go into 1575 times. You cannot write this as a fraction because the question did not ask us to write it as a fraction. So when you write this as a fraction, you'll be marked wrong. So when you get the answer in the form like this, you need to express it as a ratio, which is 1:75. Now, in our next episode, we are going to do more examples on other units.